support all these years, and then now, and a lot has happened the last few months, and I urge you guys to continue to support us and our teammate, man, because it's still our brother. Let's go.
All right, guys, what is going on? Welcome to our Sixers post-game live. The Sixers got the L tonight, 114-109 to the Brooklyn Nets. We have a lot to talk about tonight. Not even about the game. We're talking about Doc Rivers tonight. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about our top takeaways. We're going to talk about our player of the game. We're going to grade tonight's performance. Joining us is, of course, my man Tiago. Follow him on Twitter at TScabby. What's up, Tiago?
Man, it feels like a replay of that Atlanta series. Where
shoot me now, man. Shoot me now, man.
I was told Ben Simmons being the point guard was an issue, and I did not see Ben Simmons on the court tonight. So we're gonna have to talk about it for sure.
We got a special guest, man. He is Sean. Man, just the Pick Swap Pod, just amazing stuff. They run their own YouTube channel. You got to subscribe. What's up, Sean?
What's going on? Not in great spirits here right now, but that was a brutal ending of that terrible last stretch. But in a game that looked so good otherwise and was so exciting for most of it. So very disappointing ending, and definitely in the worst spirits I have been on this pod so far. So
every ounce of this game felt like a playoff game. Where you're in the fourth quarter, a Sixers playoff game. When you're in the fourth quarter, you're literally watching every single second click and drop. And sure enough, the Sixers don't score a bucket for over 5 minutes, and the Nets go on a 13-0 run. Danny Green sets a charge. I don't know what Doc Rivers was looking at. Doesn't challenge the play. The Sixers were up 108-106 at that point. The Nets, I don't think, had a single lead in this entire game up until that point. It is inexcusable. It is inexcusable. And Tiago's going to go off on this, but I'll just touch on it quick. We have a Ben Simmons problem. We have a Sixers organization problem, and that starts with Doc Rivers. Go ahead. Floor is yours, Tiago.
Chris, how can I follow that, man? You just went to work. Listen, it's just your standard 16-1 run against a Doc Rivers led team, right? So it happens every year.
Every time
against multiple teams in multiple situations. And at some point, we got to stop pointing fingers at the players and start looking at the head coach. Does anybody know at what time did Joel Embiid check back into the game in the fourth quarter?
I'll tell you right now.
I believe it was with around 4 minutes to play. So he was originally up by the scorer's table before the timeout and then pulled back. And I think it was a whole nother minute drained off the clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right, Sean. So exactly. Julio mentioned that on the chat. You go 8 minutes in the fourth quarter against one of the best offensive teams without your best offensive player. What do you expect the outcome to be in the long run? I mean, it is, unless Joel Embiid is on the sideline telling you, I can't go in, which does not seem to be the case at all, you're asking for an L because this guy's your best offensive player. Now, granted, there are things about Joel's offensive game late in the fourth quarter, which continues to rise up as an issue. But he's still your best offensive player, and he needs to be on the court late in games unless he's injured. And he did not look injured late in the game. So the finger goes directly back to the head coach. And this is the thing we've been talking about way back in the last year.
Yep.
The love affair with the bench lineup. This is a game 2 of our 82-game season, but this is something we're going to continue to notice with Doc Rivers throughout the year. And at some point, man, you got to call it out as it is. If you're trying to win the game, you need your best players on the court, period. And that did not happen tonight. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about the game, but this is something that once again, it reared its ugly head, and it cost the Sixers a game which, like Sean said, it had a ton of great things to talk about. I mean, a ton. This team played a phenomenal game against one of the best offensive teams in the NBA. But we can't talk about that. Why? Because the coach once again got in the way late in the game. So it's very, very disappointing.
Every single time the Nets tried to get in this game, it was Tobias Harris, pull-up jumper, floater, Seth Curry in the lane, three-pointer. The Sixers had an answer until the fourth quarter. And, little plug, we have our Morning Cup of Joe show going down tomorrow morning. And I brought in as our guest a guy that's not exactly in cahoots with Doc Rivers. And I asked him, what can Doc Rivers prove to make you feel better about this season? Because you look at this game, you look at his resume, this is what he is. Like, he gives up leads. This is like, I don't know how to get over this. Sean, walk me off the ledge. Is this just game 2? Or is this like a real issue here that we should be, really hammering down?
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't been a Doc guy for most of last year either, and we saw this offseason the upgrades with Andre Drummond and Georges Niang, and to me, like, obviously great upgrades over those guys, but it's just feeding into Doc's belief in running the same rotations and finding upgrades with that, rather than Doc adapting to modern basketball and finding ways to influence that. So I have a little bit of like a fundamental disagreement, which is kind of like, I understand catering to your coach, but there has to be some sort of growth there. And then, I mean, from the Joel perspective, there's obviously something up with his knee. He's for sure not 100%. And they're definitely doing their best to control that, limit that, and everything. But there has to come to a point where you just let this guy play. And I understand he went to the locker room early before the second half. He for sure was favoring, and Drummond definitely got some extra work because of that. But just not letting him on the court for crunch time there. And he played 30 minutes tonight, which is something well within that he should be capable of. And even more than that, I mean, he had a late game in the first, and it's so frustrating that, like, I felt like we never fully went for it in crunch time today. Like, there was never that moment where things clicked. And I know we went like 5 minutes scoreless at the end and everything was downhill, but it felt like there was never kind of the crunch time click with the team. And whether that be rotational or what it is, I know the starters were out there too, but just the momentum just completely swung in the Nets' favor. And Doc Rivers and the Sixers had no way of getting that back.
No, well said, Sean.
And
Let's go to some comments. Let's go to some comments, and then I'll go back to you, my man. RJ says Doc blew this game. How do you not challenge that? I mean, he didn't even try. Like, it looked on the sideline like he had no idea that you could even challenge that. At least that's just from my outside perspective.
And there were 2 challenge opportunities missed with the Tobias that was poked out that I definitely thought went off KD's knee, followed by the charge. And to just let both of those slip by in a game where every possession clearly mattered is absurd.
Return of the prodigal Yams, one of our favorite commentators, says game blame goes to Doc and Danny Green. Oh, the air balls by Danny Green, the wide open threes. They're available, missed opportunities. RC Campbell says Matisse Thybulle was just as bad. RJ says Danny choked like hell. Quentin Moore says Tyrese Maxey is not the guy. I love it. Doc, WTF. Chris Dunn says all on coaching. Why would you keep Danny in and not put in Furkan Korkmaz? And Mark Henry says Doc lost this game. He's failed to manage egos and personalities. He's failed time and time again in the playoffs. He's failed time and time in the fourth quarter. He's a bigger problem than Ben ever was. That might be the best comment of the day right there. But go ahead, Tiago. You're up, man.
So a couple of things. On the Danny Green front, Danny Green had another very poor game, and I'm not going to crush Danny Green because Danny Green is one of those veteran guys who understands, like, it's an 82-game season. There is a rhythm to an 82-game season. That doesn't mean you have to play hard every single game, every single time, because he's a veteran player. However, the Sixers now have alternatives to a poor Danny Green game that they did not have last year. And I'll point specifically to Georges Niang. Georges Niang is not a shooting guard, but Georges Niang can space the floor and defend multiple positions. He's not a zero defensively like you had with Mike Scott, and he can defend down a position, perhaps from a small forward down to a shooting guard position. So you look at late game offense, and you see once again Danny Green off a bad night, and he's still out there shooting air balls. So perhaps if you want to play, differently, you're thinking a little bit outside the box. Why not give not Danny Green, but Georges Niang a shot here? I mean, he didn't have a particularly great shooting night, but again, Danny Green was a clear zero throughout the rest of the game. So why not give him a shot?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sean.
I don't want to leave Danny Green fully blameless here. Like, as much as I agree that Doc should have taken him out, that third air ball, which the corner one was, there was 10 plus seconds left in the shot clock. He's obviously cold. It was a rush shot in a key possession of the game, which just can never happen for a guy of his caliber. And especially at this point, like, he's a guy like during crunch time we will need, but I'm ready to at least give some other guys looks to just see what they got at this point.
Exactly.
As much as I want to hit on Danny Green, he did hold Brandon Ingram to 1 of 8 from the field in game 1. So I'm gonna wait. And I'm gonna look at see what it says after this game. I mean, Kevin Durant. I mean, DG did a lot on KD today.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, you're not going to stop Kevin Durant. You're really only going to slow him down.
But Chris,
man,
that's what it is. Like, Danny Green is a specialist. You use him in situations where you need Danny Green.
I said this. He's
not a guy you can count on for 48 minutes.
I said that. I literally said exactly this, that he is a complimentary guy. His fit next to Ben and Joel was terrific. No Ben, there could be an issue here. And we talked about this before the season started. But he is not a guy that you should be expecting instant offense from. Justin's back. Man.
Is it not working? Oh.
We're getting some background noise. I'm sorry, bro.
It sucks. I can't get my audio to work. It's driving me nuts.
Oh, man. All right. Let's go into where do we go from here? I don't even we talked about Doc. We talked about Joel Embiid. No, we didn't talk about Joel Embiid. Tiago, what was your take on Joel Embiid tonight? I mean, he made that speech in the pregame saying that, Ben is, still our teammate. Ben is our guy. He's our brother. He clearly said to the fans, cut it out. Because we were expecting a lot of the fans to, especially pregame, there's a lot of shit going down outside of the stadium on the Ben Simmons hate front. But what do you make out of Joel Embiid so far this year, and what's your take?
I mean, from the speech standpoint, I'll give Joel tremendous respect for really, bringing, the issues to the forefront and owning to the fact that Ben Simmons is still a player on the Sixers, and Ben Simmons is a guy who can help the Sixers win a championship. So I'll give him tremendous respect for really putting that out there to the fans and kind of, saying, hey, listen, this guy's still part of our team. And as long as it's part of our team, we're going to support him. So I have nothing but love and respect for Joe for bringing that out there. I thought that, with Joe, and it's a pattern we've seen with him over the course of his career, is that when things get down late, shots tend to fall short and turnovers tend to ramp up. And again, this is not a knock on Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid once again showed to you in front of everybody in the whole world that he's the guy who can get you tough buckets, can hit jumpers in very critical situations. But at the end of the game, you need a complementary player to help out Embiid. And you don't have that right now. You just don't. And you have a coach who thinks something I wrote about. You have the shot chart right there in front of everybody. Something I wrote about when they first hired Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is a guy who doesn't really believe so much in ball movement. He preaches ball movement, but his offenses don't resemble that. And he's a guy who relied a lot on isolation principles to win you games. But isolation principles in the NBA, rely on point guard and guard play. And he's trying to do this with a center, meaning that he's trying to isolate Joel Embiid and say, listen, you're my guard, go win the game. And that is a very hard thing to do for Joel Embiid. I mean, you're asking a guy down a low post double teams, being defended by a bigger guard. So with that in mind, if you don't have a coach who can kind of say, listen, I need to expand my plan and play off Joel's gravity, have guys cut, have guys move. So if Joel's getting double team, he can easily identify a guy and get an easy bucket. If you don't have that creativity in your offense, you're pretty much asking Joel Embiid to be Dame Lillard. And he's not that player. He's just not. So I feel bad because Embiid is a tremendous talent. We all know that. A tremendous player. But we continue to see the same late game offense burn their Sixers. And it happened again tonight. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, here is the shot chart. You're seeing a lot of just attempts outside of the paint here. You saw in game one, especially in that second half, when most of his attempts was out of the paint. And he ended up this game, 6 of 15 from the floor, not a single bucket in the fourth quarter. Doc Rivers, make it whatever you want it to be. But this is a guy that struggled, 2 straight games in the second half. They got the win in the first game. But here I think he had 8 quick points here in the third quarter, like literally within the first few minutes of the third quarter. He had a reverse layup. The rim protection was terrific, but just non-existent. And the memory of this game will be the miss he had there underneath the rim. And that, yeah, go ahead, Tiago.
So just one more point, Chris, because if we go back and look at all those reds on the shot chart, so everything, all the X's you see on the shot chart, I bet if we go look at the video, especially late, it's Joel Embiid facing his guy man to man and the other 4 guys standing around and watching him.
Yeah.
And that works when you're Dame Lillard. That works when you're Dame Lillard. And you can spot up from half court and be like, I don't care about my teammates. I'm going to hit this shot from 50 feet. You're asking for too much. Like, you're asking for too much. And it works. Like, Joel Embiid is a tremendous shot maker, an MVP type player. It is not a criticism on him. But you need to add complementary shot makers. And if you don't have that, you need creativity around the gravity that it brings you in the post. And if you watch, it's static offense, period.
Just to piggyback off of exactly what you just said in the first quarter, if you look at this top left, that green circle there in that mid-range area, there was a play in the first quarter where he was double teamed and no one moved. Absolutely no one moved. And he pulled up and hit the tough contested jump shot. But as good of a shot that was, it was like everyone was just standing still. I fully agree with that, dude. Sean, what's your take on Joel Embiid so far this season? It's field goal wise, he's not getting his shots. They're not falling. It's only 2 games. And what's your take?
Yeah, I thought tonight was a sloppier game out of him than the first. He had 3 turnovers. It felt like more than that. A couple errant passes. The one that went off the backboard of the rim was particularly stands out in my mind. Like you said, Tiago, he for sure is being asked of too much. So I do feel bad for him. Like, he's never been paired with the proper perimeter creator that would bring out the most in him. And you see him trying to kind of take on that role himself. He's dribbling the ball way more than he should ever have to do. And I thought the Nets did a pretty good job of shrinking the floor that we didn't see with the Pelicans in game 1. And you see how the offense is set up with the Embiid and shooters to just create as much space as possible. But the Nets did a pretty good job on not allowing him to kind of just get his man on an island in the way the Sixers hope to do with it. So credit to the Nets for scheming up a little better, but definitely got to be better out of Embiid. And it's just disappointing that kind of disappearing towards the end.
Christopher Moore says Danny Green looks cooked as an NBA defender. I'm not so sure about that just yet. Justin,
is it working?
It's working. We're back.
Thank God, boys. I missed you all.
All right. What's your take on Doc Rivers not challenging that Danny Green, which should have been charged? Are we all having flashbacks of last season? Are we all freaking out way too much over Doc Rivers' resume of giving up leads again and again and again? What's your take?
So I don't think anyone's freaking out too much based on what Doc Rivers has given in the past. Honestly, I mean, he's shown his cards multiple times on giving up leads, and we've talked about that numerous times in our podcast. I do want to say, based on the not calling the challenges, Austin Krell, our beat reporter for the Painted Lines, who is at the Sixers arena tonight, said Doc Rivers said that he didn't use his challenges because the staffer who advises them on challenges behind the bench told them not to challenge the plays in question.
Justin.
Yes.
He's looking at the same thing his staffer's looking at.
I completely hear you. I'm just telling you based on what Austin said. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with the fact.
You cannot buy that as an excuse. You're looking at the same thing your staffer is doing. It's not like your staffer is looking at a monitor on the sideline. So unless you're not paying attention to the game, which I know he is, you got to make the call yourself late in the game, man. You have to. This is not.
I hear you, and I think in hindsight, I think he probably would have. I think one of the problems with the new rules in the NBA and how they're not looking at things themselves, it gives you even less opportunity to like perfect when you want to use something like that. I think that doesn't help, obviously, but I don't disagree with you. I think that's a challenge that in hindsight you definitely want back. But I will also say if you win this game, I don't think as many people talk about that.
True, I completely agree with you on that. But then call a timeout.
Yeah,
you got 100 timeouts. Call a timeout. You know, these are the things we've been talking about, Doc Rivers. It's emotional. It's about complaining, and it's not about taking a step back and be like, "What's going on out here?" He's constantly complaining to the refs, but not looking at what's happening out there. So it's very unfortunate.
Go ahead, Justin. Yeah.
I was going to say another update from Austin. Embiid says he probably shouldn't have been on the court today because of his knee. He said, let me make sure I'm quoting this correctly before I
games in a row. First two games, he's already grabbing at his knee.
Yeah, he said. Yeah, I noticed that. We talked about that last post game. I noticed it in the first quarter. Joel Embiid says his knee is really sore. Doc Rivers said he couldn't play Joel as much as he wanted. Which I think we could all see that. You can tell Joel has been favoring his knee a lot in the past two games, which is not a good sign, obviously, for the beginning of the season. But what are you going to do? I at this point, it's kind of hard to say what to do with Joel because it seems like it's always lower body injuries, and it's hard to do much with that when you have a almost 300-pound center on your squad.
It is crazy how impactful this guy is at never being 100% and just how good he still is. And there's definitely plays where it doesn't always look pretty. The quick layup by Patty Mills where he kind of jumped awkwardly, that one stood out to me where he kind of like it just doesn't look fully there or comfortable. But it is insane just the way he we probably have never seen him truly at 100%. And just the way he kind of battles through with his body. And that's what you have to do. I think you need to kind of prioritize when you sit him. Tonight was not a game that we were looking to do that, but I definitely think on the lesser teams, they need to prioritize doing that. And the longer this guy stays healthy, the longer the window to win is open. So taking care of him still has to be priority number one.
And I will say with that, surprisingly so, Drummond has definitely been a better replacement than Dwight Howard was last year, especially on the offensive end and on just rebound end. When you see, and something I genuinely noticed, and just a small detail, is when the ball touches Drummond's hands, it's not bouncing off out of bounds, it's not bouncing off the other players. It lands the soft hands of Andre Drummond. I'm seeing that in comparison to Dwight Howard. Mind you, Dwight Howard's a great player, obviously played super well for the Sixers last year. You can just definitely see the areas in which Drummond is shining a little bit more, even in just these first two games. The thing that really killed the Sixers, honestly, was LaMarcus Aldridge today in the mid-range. That you could tell the Sixers were really trying to keep the Nets away from shooting threes tonight, and they did a good job of that. Defensively, they kept the Nets three-point shooting percentage down, and it kept them to shooting the long mid-range shots, which is all you can really do with a team that's as good at scoring like the Nets. But Aldridge, I'm pretty sure still scored 23 points on basically all mid-range shots and from the free throw line. So that's going to kill you when your team's bench center is scores 23 points on you.
I go straight to the 11 offensive boards.
That as well.
From the Nets. I don't know what the second chance points were for the Nets in this game, but it was almost a borderline joke, especially in the second half. It seemed like every single long rebound went to the Nets, and they converted every single time. And then you look at missed opportunities for the Sixers when they had open threes, especially in that fourth quarter, and literally airballed them. Thank you, Danny Green. I want to talk a little bit about Tyrese Maxey because he's my guy. Quentin Moore says, what are your thoughts on Maxey on both ends here? He had 15 points. To his credit, 0 turnovers tonight. He did have a sexy step back three here. I want to play it. That's pretty nice. I enjoyed this one. When he makes that step back, ooh, so nice. So nice.
I will say that the sexy step back is nice, but when he missed a few mid-range pull-ups at the end of the game that kind of killed you, which I mean, listen, second-year player playing in the height of a game against James Harden and Kevin Durant, that's you're not going to win them all.
I know.
That's something that you definitely notice at times he was coming up short there. And defensively, we know this too. I think we all expected a little bit better on-ball defense by Maxey last year, and I maybe not this year because we knew after what happened last year, but yeah.
All right. All right, Thiago, what's your take on Maxey tonight? Real quick before we get into player of the games for the Sixers.
Yeah, I don't understand the Maxey hate, to be honest, because if you zoom out and look at the big picture, you're asking a 21-year-old kid to defend James Harden.
Yeah.
And I thought that he did a phenomenal job defending James Harden tonight. James Harden's a guy who gets to the line between 10 to 14 times a game. And how many free throws James Harden have tonight? Maybe 4 or 5? I don't know what the number is. Yeah, it's. I thought he did a phenomenal job competing, defending without fouling. And this is a guy who's 6'3", who's undersized, who's very at a disadvantaged position defensively. So yeah, I mean, we can pinpoint some missed shots late in the game, but I thought as a big picture kind of thing, I thought this is exactly what you want from Tyrese Maxey. Critical minutes and against a big team in a big moment. And yes, he didn't hit all the shots, but these are the type of moments that you grow from and you gain experience and you become a better player. And last year we were talking about Tyrese Maxey on the bench in these moments. So now he's out there playing. Yes, it's not going to be pretty all the time, but seeing him compete, make shots, take shots, right? Take shots, something we've always wanted from the point guard. You have an open shot, have a look, right? Something we've always criticized Ben Simmons for is you have an open shot, but you pass. Tyrese Maxey is not passing. He's shooting. It's exactly what you want from Ben Simmons, right? You want him to shoot the open shot. So if you're going to criticize the player for taking the open shot, then,
I hope you understand this. I'm not criticizing him for taking shots.
I know you're not, Justin. But
okay, good. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah,
I'm glad he's taking the shots at the end of the game. I'm glad that he's getting the opportunity to miss shots if he's going to miss them.
Exactly.
I just think that in this game, short-sighted wise, he obviously came up short. Long-sighted wise, I think he's got a long career ahead of him. I think he's going to end up taking some end game shots for us eventually as well. So
yeah, I think that's where I stand too. And I think this is where we kind of knew we were at coming into the year is I'm very confident that Tyrese Maxey will become the level of player and perimeter scorer and creator that he needs to be successful in this league. He's not quite there yet, and it's going to be a work in progress in getting there. And the step back was sweet. I love that. Overall, I was pretty happy with Maxey's game tonight. I love the way he just competes, and defensively saw it especially tonight. And that's the biggest thing with me. Like defensively, he's going to be improving gradually, but just the will to kind of take things personal and match up, which we saw with Harden on a lot of occasions tonight, was awesome. And the floater, is one of my favorite shots off him every time. And I know Doc isn't a major fan of that either, but there definitely is things you can nitpick and complain about in the game tonight with him. But overall, I still think it's positive signs.
Cedric says Doc Rivers was worse than Tyrese Maxey.
We
fully agree there. We fully agree there. Let's go on to player of the game. I'll go last. Go ahead, Sean. Who's your player of the game for the Sixers?
I guess I'm going Tobias Harris. I think Toby was consistent enough throughout. It hurts. Pretty much everyone has leaving a little bit of emptiness in my heart after that last 5 minutes, but I'm putting Toby kind of kept us afloat throughout the whole game with Embiid kind of in and out and consistent. He's probably the most like quietly productive player. It feels like ever. You just don't even realize and then look down and he has 20 points. So I'll give it to Toby for tonight.
What about you, Tiago?
I can go with man Curry, man. I think when
Yeah.
Curry really sets himself on being a focal point in the offense, he's a deadly shooter, man. And you wish you saw more of that throughout the season. He seems to be the kind of guy who seems to kind of settle in the background. But we saw tonight, this is the kind of game where you needed Curry to make shots. And I thought that he did a phenomenal job of doing that. I mean, fearless shooter. Does not matter where he's getting looks from. He does not hesitate. But you wish you saw more of that from him throughout the course of the year. And there's a lot of games where he takes 5-6 shots, and you see the kind of shot-making potential that he has. So you hope you can see more of that throughout the year. I thought he had a phenomenal game. No questions about it.
Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys hit on a lot of the bright spots for the Sixers today. So I'm going to go over to the other side of the court, and I'm going to go KD. Kevin Durant, man, that man, he's just a bad man. Like that mid-range pull-up from the elbow, cash money every single time, no matter who's on him. You see, I mean, mind you, Matisse Thybulle is not known for being a post defender, but in the post, there's no like the only guy that's even possible that could guard him on the Sixers roster is Ben Simmons, and it's not even a question. So KD also for that shot in Tobias Harris' face, I believe it was at the end of the half, or it was at the end of a quarter or half that he just hit it right in his face from the deep three, and it was just money. He's Kevin Durant. You know his name.
No, he's so good. Man, I was gonna go Seth. It seemed like he was the guy that just always had an answer for every single Nets run. Where do I go here? I'm going to go Andre Drummond. He was a plus 22 in game one, -1 in this game. The fact that you have a center coming off the bench and impacting the game and not just rebounding, but steals and blocks.
Behind the back passes.
The behind the back pass to George Niang in the corner. Oh my God. That would have probably been like arguably already one of the best plays of the year.
Definitely.
Hit that. That would have been terrific. He also made a beautiful pass to Tobias Harris cutting to the basket. That was unbelievable. So the fact that this guy is like, impacting the game on so many different levels. He had 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks tonight. He only had 4 points on just 3 shots, but I love the energy he brings. That is definitely like by far one of the most underrated additions to this roster. Justin, lead us off. How would you grade tonight's performance?
I'll go C-. I think for most of the game they were in it and they were playing pretty well. And I think what kind of hurt him was Joel just injury-wise not being able to get back in there and play for that more of the fourth quarter. I genuinely think if Joel's healthy, this game isn't even close at the end. I think Brooklyn's taken some of their starters out. Joel's typically in the last 5 to 8 minutes of the game, and he was in there for the last 2 or 1, or I'm probably longer than that. I don't know, but it wasn't much. It wasn't enough. So C- for me.
Tiago.
Now I'll be more lenient. I thought they played a B-, C+ game. I think that if you take away again the crunch time offense and defense, I thought they played a very good game. I thought a lot of guys really stepped up in critical moments throughout the game. And I thought that the way they played defense on Kevin Durant, we'll talk about it more in the next show, but it wasn't all bad. I mean, you look at KD's number, it stands out, but I thought they did a really good job of getting him outside of his comfort zone, having become a passer instead of a shooter. And really, if you look at it in the big picture, so, guys like LaMarcus Aldridge, Patty Mills, they hit very tough shots. And when you're playing against Brooklyn, that's what you have to deal with. You got to get the ball away from the hands of Durant and Harden and have those role guys, hit or miss. And tonight they hit. So I thought overall, I thought they had a good strategy, but the execution late in the game and the coaching late in the game, I thought that kind of did a miss. So I'll give them a B-.
What about you, Sean?
Yeah, it's tough. If you cut out the last 5 minutes of the game, I'm giving a
Right?
very positive
Right?
grade.
That's
but
how it
just
is.
but just based on that, it's so frustrating to see the same mistakes. I'm gonna go C- as well. I can't look at this as anything more than that.
Yeah, I'm probably in that C range. I can't get this out of my head. Here's a
Yeah.
highlight. Like, how high were we after this freaking play when the Sixers Andre Drummond stripped
Matisse.
Joe Harris, I think, and then you had the Tobias Harris to Matisse Thybulle for the
Mhm.
alley-oop. Everything went downhill.
Chris, can I stop? What team plays Andre Drummond with 5 minutes left in the game?
I know.
With an MVP player on the bench.
The Pistons
Well
for
said.
how many years? The Pistons.
I mean, you're
This is-
trying to win the game or trying to make an ESPN top 10 highlight?
No,
What are you
I
trying to
have
do?
been one of the biggest critics of Doc Rivers after the playoffs. I've said it again on these podcasts on Party on Broad. I've said it over and over and over again. We have a Doc Rivers problem, and it just show its ugly head here. And I probably C minus C. They, like you said, Sean, they played really well through 6 minutes into the fourth quarter, and it just tanked. And it just, I'm not like, my main memory of this game will be that it is definitely that, not the times that Seth Curry, stopped the Nets run, not the time that Tobias Harris had a great play. It just sucks, man. This whole thing just sucks, especially when you look at the long-term play here of this team and the aspirations of this team here. It's just brutal. Let's wrap this up. Sean, lead us off, man. Where can we find you? What do you got going on?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Sean_Bernard1, and then you can catch our podcast, me and James, my co-host, Tuesday, Thursdays we record, and we'll have some clips out besides that too. So check out the Pick Swap Pod. Give a subscribe on YouTube and follow on Twitter as well, and some written content through Philly Sports Network. So check out all my stuff on there.
Yes, Philly Sports Network at Pick
Nice.
Swap Pod on Twitter. Please share the love. Go check them out. Awesome stuff. Thiago, you're up.
Yeah, I want to plug their written stuff because they wrote a good piece on Howard Eskin this week.
Oh God, can we not talk about Howard Eskin right now?
Yeah, I think we need to call out, shitty reporting on our town, and these guys do a great job of doing that. So shout out to them for doing that.
That was my co-host James that wrote that.
Yeah, I know exactly who that is. And I read that piece word for word, and I'll co-sign everything he wrote down on that piece because, we're seeing a lot of true colors come out through this Ben Simmons stuff, and it's glad that people are out there calling him out on this BS. So shout out to that.
So if we're gonna call out bad reporting, let's call out good reporting. Austin Krell.
Yeah. Austin does a great job. He's plugged in. He gets resources. He calls out what it is. And there are guys who have a big name but are not plugged in with this team. So next time you read about Howard Eskin, think about that because what he put out there this week is flat out embarrassing. Flat out embarrassing. So I'm glad these guys called him out on that.
Amen.
So we'll continue these post game shows. Chris and I do the Cup of Joe in the mornings. We'll do it again tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock.
Sure.
That's good stuff.
And we'll continue. I'm keeping an eye on guys who I think the Sixers can make a trade for that are not star guys like Beal or Dame, but have that star ceiling. And eventually we're going to do a write up on those guys. So there's a name of about 4 or 5 guys that I'm keeping an eye on. So look out for that.
Don't release the names yet.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything. Justin, you're up, bro.
Yeah, man, go follow me on Twitter. The Blue Coat season's coming up. Yeah, I think the first game is November 6th or November 8th. I can keep getting them mixed up in my head, but first game coming up, I will be down at the Chase Fieldhouse with our Blue Coats, giving you the top content out there. TPL just released the GM of the Blue Coats first on Twitter, so go check out that article by Austin Krell. TPL's plugged in, baby. We got sources out here.
I'm going to give a shout out to the Sixers fans who had every opportunity on the national stage to kind of like do their thing. And there was a moment in that first quarter when Joel Embiid was on the free throw line. And sure enough, the MVP chants came out. And I just want to say, Thank you, because I was like legit paranoid that like, wait, I'm not gonna make this a Ben Simmons thing. I'm not gonna go there. I promise not. But I'm just proud that it didn't happen. It is what it is. We just have to play the waiting game a little bit. Philly fans are used to this when it comes to this situation. So thank you everyone for watching, guys. If you love the Sixers, give this video a like. Always be sure to subscribe. Hit that notification bell because I will be dropping tons and tons of Sixers content, especially tomorrow after every single game. You expect a Matisse Thybulle versus Kevin Durant video. Expect a video on how the Sixers defended Kevin Durant. That is exactly what we'll be talking about tomorrow morning on Morning Cup of Joe with me and Tiago. We have an amazing interview with Mark Henry Jr., literally talking about Doc Rivers and whether or not, is this regular season moot? Because, and whether or not can he impress us enough to take away our fears for the playoffs. That was perfect timing. So follow my man Justin on Twitter at J_Persichetti. He is Tiago on Twitter at T_Scabia, and my man Sean at Sean_Bernard1. And check out the Pick Swap Pod on Twitter at Pick Swap Pod. Philly Sports Network. Thank you so much for joining, Sean. For Justin, for Tiago, for Sean, for myself. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome. Peace.